It's late, too late to be out in the mountains, but Yun moves through the dark as if it were part of her routine. She has just finished pruning a neglected tree and carefully injects nutrients into its trunk. Patting the bark, she reassures it that it will recover. Then, half joking and half serious, she mutters about the mountain's owner abandoning trees that still have a chance to live. To anyone watching, she might seem eccentric. But this is simply how Yun lives. Her days are filled with landscaping work and demanding clients, her nights are reserved for checking on forgotten trees in the hills. It's dangerous to wander out at this hour, yet she treats it like any other evening. The air is unusually still, but she doesn't sense the warning hidden in that calm. Not far from her, a man stumbles through the forest, injured and desperate. He reaches the edge of a pit and pleads with the person chasing him, promising to reveal everything he knows if he is spared. His pursuer shows no sympathy. Instead, he mocks the man's fear, telling him that begging to live is pointless, that the real show is only beginning. Without hesitation, he kicks the injured man into the hole. Yun arrives just in time to witness the aftermath. Hidden by the trees, she watches in disbelief as the pursuer begins covering the pit. Shock settles into clarity. She has stumbled onto a murder scene. Her instinct is to report it immediately. Slowly, carefully, she reaches into her overalls for her phone and begins stepping backward. A twig snaps beneath her foot. The sound cuts through the silence. The man by the pit stops moving. Yun freezes, cold sweat gathering on her skin. From her vantage point, she notices something else, a second body lying nearby. The realization hits her, this isn't a random act. The man is methodical, likely experienced. She debates whether to move. Staying still might keep her hidden, moving might guarantee she's seen. Before she can decide, the pursuer lifts his head and looks directly at her. Their eyes meet. A slow smile spreads across his face as he asks whether she plans to run. That single word is enough. Yun turns and sprints into the dark. The man doesn't rush after her immediately. He watches her flee, almost amused, giving her a small head start before following. Branches whip against Yun as she runs downhill through the dim forest. She manages to call the police, breathless as she explains what she saw. Instead of focusing on her immediate danger, the dispatcher presses her to confirm the details. Was she certain it was a body being buried? Yun insists she knows what she witnessed. She gives her name and location and begs them to hurry. The officer assures her that units are on the way, but warns that filing a false report carries penalties. Yun agrees, repeating that this is not a prank. Then she feels it, thin cords tightening around her neck. The call ends abruptly. The pursuer stands behind her, restraining her with calculated ease. In a calm, mocking tone, he tells her she dropped her chainsaw. He even hands it back to her, as if returning a misplaced tool, and suggests she be more careful with her belongings. In that moment, Yun thinks her life is over. She has avoided trouble, worked hard, and quietly built toward the future she wants. She cannot accept dying here for no reason. Desperation sharpens into resolve. Gripping the chainsaw, she swings it at him with all her strength. The blow lands, but when she looks up, he is still standing. There's only a faint bruise on his face, though his expression has changed. For a split second, she sees something unexpected in his eyes. Fear. Before she can understand it, a figure rises behind him, the injured man from the pit. He strikes the pursuer in the back of the head with a rock. The attacker staggers, attempts to retaliate, and then collapses unconscious. The injured man checks briefly to ensure the threat is neutralized. Without another word, he drops the rock and runs, disappearing into the forest. Yun remains where she is, staring at the fallen man. Her hands tremble. The police are coming. There are bodies. There are questions she cannot answer. This night, which began like every other, will not end the same way. Because instead of turning him in, Yun will make a decision that binds her to him in secret. The man who tried to kill her will survive, but not as he was. He will become her hidden patient, bedridden and unresponsive, living in a vegetative state under her care for the next 2 years. 2 years have passed since the incident that brought Yun into his life, and he remains in a coma. There has been no visible change in his condition. While he lies unconscious, Yun continues her work as a tree doctor, focusing on her patients one tree at a time. At a local school, she examines a tree that appears unhealthy. After a careful inspection, she concludes that the tree is suffering from what she bluntly describes as constipation. The principal is taken aback and asks her to explain more clearly. Yun clarifies in practical terms, the tree is absorbing nutrients, but it is unable to expel waste properly. She compares it to a human body, emphasizing that excretion is essential for both plants and people. She refers to this principle as maintaining a healthy bowel movement. The principal still struggles to understand. Frustrated, he raises his voice and demands a clearer explanation, unintentionally frightening nearby children. Realizing his outburst, he quickly composes himself and pleads with Yun to save the tree. He stresses that it is the school's official tree and an important symbol for the students. Yun assures him that the treatment is manageable. The issue, she explains, is not complicated. Nutrients are going in, but waste materials are not being released properly, which is damaging the roots. What she does not initially realize is that the principal has ulterior motives. Internally, he considers her naive and plans to exploit that. His intention is to overwork her with repeated treatments, sabotage the trees again, demand refunds, and potentially file a lawsuit for damages. While Yun continues her explanation, the principal barely listens. He smiles to himself, confident in his scheme. However, Yun suddenly calls him out, stating that he is hiding something. The principal grows uneasy. Yun mentions that she heard about the school's recent building expansion. She lists construction materials that were likely left over and suggests that they were improperly disposed of. She accuses the principal of mixing construction waste into the soil around the tree to avoid disposal costs. As a result, she explains, the tree's roots are suffocating and could eventually develop root disease. The principal attempts to deny the accusation, but Yun presses further. She openly states that dumping waste to save money is irresponsible and harmful. If necessary, she says, she can report the matter to City Hall, which would likely cost him far more than proper waste disposal ever would. She reiterates her point, excretion is vital to plants just as it is to humans. With that, she prepares to leave, ignoring his stunned expression. Realizing that denial will not work, the principal tries to stop her and asks her to hear him out. At first, she refuses. However, after a brief pause to consider the situation, she decides to return, not out of sympathy, but to make her position clear. She tells him that as a tree doctor, she intends to be a voice for trees that cannot speak for themselves. She states confidently that she excels at saving plants and, when necessary, eliminating them. What she leaves unsaid is that she takes particular satisfaction in confronting guardians like him. With a bright, composed smile, she hands him her business card, inviting him to visit their tree hospital again if needed. Then she leaves. On her way back to the office, Yun reflects on how often people underestimate her because she is a female doctor. Some assume she is easier to pressure or manipulate, which frequently leads to unnecessary power struggles. Still, she is used to dealing with stubborn men in positions of authority and does not consider this encounter unusual. Her thoughts are interrupted by a phone call from her boss. The warning is direct: if Yun does not arrive within 5 minutes, her boss will break down a locked door on the second floor of their office. Yun immediately understands which door she means and tries to calm her down while accelerating toward the office. Her boss explains that she heard a sound coming from the supposedly empty room. Yun insists it must have been a mistake, there should be no sound coming from an unused space. However, her boss is unconvinced and reveals that she has already called a locksmith. This news alarms Yun. She urgently asks for 3 minutes and pleads with her boss not to open the door until she arrives. After hanging up, the locksmith asks whether he should proceed. Yun's boss, driven by curiosity, gives him permission to continue. Yun rushes to the office, knowing that if she is even slightly late, her secret will be exposed. Behind that door lies the unconscious man she has been hiding, a sleeping deviant, as she privately refers to him. She cannot allow anyone to discover him. She arrives just as the locksmith begins dismantling the lock. Reaching the scene in time, she stops the process and pays the locksmith to leave. Her boss watches with visible disappointment, frustrated that Yun returned before the door could be opened. Irritated, Yun grabs her boss by the collar and reminds her that the second floor is off-limits because it belongs to a different owner. Her boss brushes off the explanation, accusing Yun of making excuses to keep the room a secret. When Yun attempts to clarify, her boss cuts her off and questions why she is being kept at a distance after all their years of working together. Yun suspects her boss imagines something valuable hidden inside, perhaps gold bars, and jokingly promises she would not steal them. In truth, the situation is far more complicated. If anything, she wishes someone would take this burden from her. Still, to protect her boss from becoming entangled in something dangerous, she maintains her lie that the room is empty. Her boss insists she simply wants to step inside and breathe the air of the supposedly empty room. Yun counters that it would be unhealthy because the space is poorly ventilated. Beneath her calm exterior, however, she knows the real reason she cannot allow anyone in. The man who has remained in a coma for 2 years is still there, hidden from the world. She has to make sure no one enters the room. Even if that means being called a liar. Even if it ruins her reputation. Because if anyone steps inside and sees what she's hiding, her life will be over. It all goes back to 2 years ago, to the day she met Kwon Ji-suk. That day, Yun woke up in an unfamiliar place, her wrists restrained, a man sitting calmly across from her. The room felt wrong from the start, dim, cold, and heavy with a metallic smell. Her last memory was from the mountain. She didn't know how she had ended up here. Then she realized where she was. It was an abattoir. Meat hung from hooks. Blood stained the floor. The sharp scent of raw flesh filled the air. The sight made her stomach churn, and the panic she had been holding back finally surfaced. The man, Kwon Ji-suk, watched her in silence until she began to lose her composure. Then he asked a simple question: why did she do it? She didn't understand at first. Do what? Ji-suk clarified. The person she had tried to kill was his younger brother. That was when her fear deepened. She remembered the mountain. She remembered the struggle. She also remembered that his brother had been trying to kill someone else. From what she had seen, both brothers were dangerous. And now she was alone with one of them. Yun forced herself to speak. She told him he was mistaken. She had acted in self-defense. She wasn't the one who delivered the final blow. She explained that his brother had already killed one person and was in the middle of burying another. Ji-suk's response was unsettlingly indifferent. He asked what was so unusual about burying one person. At that moment, Yun understood that appealing to morality would not work. Ji-suk admitted he was only irritated because his fun had been interrupted. Then he asked how she viewed his brother. The question caught her off guard. There was no safe answer. She chose instead to repeat that she wasn't responsible, that someone else had struck his brother from behind with a stone. She had only used a chainsaw to defend herself. To Ji-suk, her story didn't make sense. He insisted his brother had sharp hearing and would not have been taken by surprise so easily. The implication was clear: he didn't believe her. Yun felt trapped. If he decided she was guilty, there would be no one to protect her. The location, the restraints, the way he spoke, it all suggested he could erase her without consequence. Then Ji-suk called her by name. He told her something worse than a threat: he didn't care about the details. Whether she was telling the truth was irrelevant. If he wanted, he could make her the perfect perpetrator. The evidence would align. The story would hold. No one would question it. But instead of killing her, he offered a deal. His younger brother had fallen into a vegetative state. Since she was the last person to see him conscious, she would pay the price. He placed a contract in front of her. His men uncuffed her so she could sign it. There was no real choice. He briefly explained the terms: she would take responsibility for caring for his brother until the real culprit was found. Until then, she would stay close, monitor him, and ensure he did not leave the Weidong residence. If necessary, she was permitted to restrain him. If she cooperated, she would walk away unharmed. Yun signed. The aftermath moved quickly. By the next day, the mountain crime scene had been completely cleaned. When she tried to report what had happened, the police fined her for filing a false report. There was no trace of violence left to support her claims. Soon after, construction began at the Weidong estate. A second floor was added with remarkable speed. Medical staff were stationed around the clock to monitor the unconscious younger brother, Kwon Chai-woo. Only 3 people knew what had truly happened on that mountain: Yun, Jae-suk, and Chai-woo, who lay unmoving. Over the past 2 years, Yun has lived in quiet confinement. Outwardly, she appears to be caring for a patient in a wealthy household. In reality, she is bound by a contract and by fear. Jae-suk once told her it would not be difficult to frame her if he chose to. Watching how easily evidence disappeared and how quickly structures were built, she understands that he was not exaggerating. So she follows the rules. Every night, she checks on Chai-woo. He lies in bed, breathing steadily, his expression calm, almost peaceful. Like a plant sustained by careful tending. She has learned his name. She monitors his condition. She keeps the room secure. And she prays. She prays that he never wakes up. As long as he remains unconscious, the arrangement holds. Her role is clear. Her life, though constrained, is stable. But one night, as she stands by his bedside at midnight, she sees it. His finger moves. It is small. Almost imperceptible. But it is enough. Because if Kwon Chai-woo wakes up, the fragile balance that has kept her alive for 2 years may finally collapse. The next day, Yen is focused on her usual work when her boss calls her over with unexpected news. A man, the son of Seoul Landscaping Company, has arrived in Korea for a marriage meeting, and Yen's boss wants her to go meet him. Yen barely looks up from her task. She dryly remarks that her boss's new romantic interest seems young enough to be her grandchild and assumes this has something to do with that. Her boss quickly corrects her. The man is not for her, it's Yen who should meet him. Yen is confused. She has no interest in blind dates arranged for strategic reasons. But her boss explains the situation plainly: their Tree Hospital is struggling financially. Since the arrival of Donggo Hospital, most of their major clients have shifted away. Donggo entered the city with a 5-story facility and a strong marketing strategy, quickly dominating the industry. Yan's workplace has been left with small contracts from neighborhood houses and community centers, barely enough to sustain operations. According to her boss, this marriage meeting is an opportunity. If Yen can form a connection with the landscaping company's heir, it could mean financial backing, or at least strategic support. Yen asks what this has to do with her personally. Her boss argues that aligning themselves with the landscaping company would help them reclaim what Donggo took from them. She has already gone so far as to secure Yen a queue number for the event and insists it's just tea and conversation. Yen refuses outright. She says she's not a gold digger, and the whole setup feels manipulative. Her boss snaps back, telling her she lacks both the personality and the skill set of a gold digger anyway. All she's asking, she says, is for Yen to introduce herself and make a good impression. Frustrated, Yen demands to know how her boss even found out about the man's return. The answer surprises her: his father contacted her directly. They once worked together. Yen hadn't known that part of her boss's history. Her boss dismisses her shock and adds that marriage isn't something to leave to fate, it's a decision made with foresight. The conversation ends with Yen excusing herself to check the garden. Her boss calls after her, asking if she intends to live alone forever. Outside, surrounded by plants and soil, Yen reflects on how relationships feel toxic to her. She prefers a quiet life, tending to trees and keeping to herself. Yet the thought feels hollow. There is a man hidden in her house, a killer. Her life has not been peaceful for a long time. When Yen first brought Chae-woo home, she was constantly afraid he would wake up. For 2 years, he remained unconscious. Slowly, her fear shifted into a strange relief. As long as he slept, he couldn't hurt her. Now, at midnight, she follows her routine and checks the second floor before bed. The habit has become automatic. But tonight, the bed is empty. Her mind jumps immediately to Gizik and the possibility of retaliation. Panic overtakes her as she rushes into the room. Chae-woo is standing by the door. Before she can react, he grabs her and pins her down. She struggles instinctively, but his strength overwhelms her. It makes no sense. After 2 years in a coma, his muscles should have weakened. Instead, he holds her effortlessly. She tells him to let her go so she can call a doctor. He silences her and demands answers. His first question is disorienting. Did she lock him up, or did he lock her up? Yen insists she didn't imprison him and tries to explain that he has been unconscious for 2 years. He watches her with glowing amber eyes, animalistic and unreadable. Then he asks whether Chae-woo is his name. When she hesitates, he presses a syringe to her neck and asks if she's someone he would have no problem killing. That is when Yen understands he has lost his memories. Fear gives way to calculation. She pretends to be hurt that he doesn't recognize her. Carefully, she tells him that they share a complicated relationship, one she cannot easily escape. He studies her closely and notices her trembling. He asks why she's shaking. Before she can answer, his body gives out. He collapses. Later that night, as he regains consciousness in a weakened state, Yen makes a decision. To protect herself, she tells him a lie. She says she is his wife.
Thank you for watching this episode of our Manhwa recap. We hope you enjoyed diving into the world of this story with us. If you loved the content, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you even more amazing manhwa recaps. See you in the next episode.